I'm Melissa, from Reno, Nevada. I'd been dating Corey for over a year. He worked in tech support and didn't own a car, so I often let him borrow mine for work calls around town. He always said he'd pay me back for gas. He never did. One Friday morning, he asked to borrow the car for a last-minute job site visit in Carson City. I had no reason to doubt him. He kissed me goodbye and said he'd be home that night. He didn't come home. No texts. No calls. I started panicking. Called hospitals, even his mom. No one had heard from him. I was about to report the car stolen when I remembered I had an old GPS tracking app still synced from when I first bought it. I logged in. My car was in Las Vegas. At a resort hotel. I stared at the screen for a while before it sank in. He had driven my car 6 hours away, not for work, but for fun. I called the hotel. Posed as his wife. They confirmed he had checked in under his name, and had a guest listed. Her name wasn't mine. I got screenshots. I even found her Instagram. She'd posted a boomerang of the two of them clinking champagne glasses, with my car in the background. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. Instead, I drove down to Vegas. Checked into the same hotel. Waited until they were out at the pool. Then I had the car towed. Reported it as unauthorized use. Because legally, it was. Corey came back to an empty parking spot and 3 angry voicemails from the tow yard. I left a note at the front desk, hope she's worth the Uber back. He never came home. And that car never looked more beautiful than when I drove it back, alone, windows down, music blasting, free. I should have seen the warning signs months earlier. The way Corey's eyes would drift to his phone whenever it buzzed. How he'd step outside to take certain calls, claiming it was just work stuff. The unexplained late nights that were becoming more frequent. But love has a way of blinding you to the obvious. We'd met at a friend's housewarming party in downtown Reno. Corey had this easy confidence about him, the kind that made everyone in the room gravitate toward his stories. He worked in tech support for a software company, solving problems remotely for clients across Nevada and California. His laugh was infectious, and I still remember how he'd looked at me that night, like I was the only person worth talking to. 3 months into our relationship, he mentioned his car had broken down. The repair costs were too high for what the old Honda was worth, so he decided to sell it for parts. I didn't think twice about offering him my Subaru Outback when he needed it for work. At first, it was just once a week. Then twice. Eventually, it became so regular that I started taking the bus to my job at the medical office where I worked as an administrator. "You're a lifesaver, Mel," he'd say, kissing my forehead. "I'll pay you back for gas this weekend." He never did, but I brushed it off. Love is about supporting each other, right? That's what my mom always said before Dad left us for his secretary when I was 12. Maybe I was trying too hard to prove her wrong. That Thursday night, while we were making dinner, Corey got a call that he took in the bedroom. When he came out, his expression was serious, professional, what I'd come to recognize as his work face. "Everything okay?" I asked, stirring the pasta sauce. "One of our biggest clients in Carson City is having major server issues," he said, running a hand through his dark hair. "They need someone on site first thing tomorrow." My supervisor asked if I could handle it. "Of course," I said, not thinking twice. "Take my car." He smiled, relief washing over his face. "You're the best, you know that." He wrapped his arms around me from behind, his chin resting on my shoulder. "I'll make it up to you. Maybe we could do something special next weekend." "That sounds nice," I said, leaning back into him. In the morning, Corey was all business. He packed a small overnight bag, just in case the job runs late and I need to crash at a motel, and kissed me goodbye. I watched from the apartment window as he pulled out of the parking lot in my blue Subaru, waving once before disappearing around the corner. When I got home from work that evening, I sent him a quick text, "How's it going? Hope the client isn't being too difficult." No response. By 8 p.m., I called. Straight to voicemail. By midnight, an uneasy feeling had settled in my stomach. This wasn't like Corey. Even on his busiest days, he'd at least send a quick text. I tried not to panic. Maybe his phone died. Maybe he was so focused on fixing the problem that he lost track of time. Maybe the reception was bad. I barely slept that night, checking my phone every hour. Nothing. When morning came and I still hadn't heard from him, real fear set in. I called his office first. The receptionist sounded confused. "Corey Watson. He requested personal time off yesterday. Said he had a family emergency." The lie hit me like a bucket of ice water. I thanked her and hung up, my hands shaking slightly. Next, I called every hospital between Reno and Carson City. No one matching his description had been admitted. I even swallowed my pride and called his mother in Sacramento, with whom he had a strained relationship at best. "Haven't heard from him in weeks, honey," she said, concern edging into her voice. "Is everything all right?" "Just a miscommunication," I assured her, not wanting to worry her. Or perhaps not wanting to admit to myself that something was very wrong. By afternoon, I was pacing our apartment, debating whether to call the police to report him, and my car, missing. What if he'd been carjacked? What if he was lying hurt somewhere, unable to call for help? Then I remembered the tracking app. When I'd bought the Subaru last year, the dealership had thrown in a 1-year subscription to their GPS tracking service. I had forgotten all about it, and it had probably auto-renewed on my credit card. I frantically searched for the login information, eventually finding it in an old email. My hands trembled as I logged in, expecting to see the blue dot somewhere between Reno and Carson City. Instead, the map centered on Las Vegas. The Bellagio Resort and Casino, to be exact. I zoomed in and out of the map several times, as if the location might somehow change. It didn't. My car, and presumably Corey, was nearly 450 miles away from where he was supposed to be. For several long minutes, I sat there, staring at the screen, trying to come up with a reasonable explanation. A last-minute change of plans? An emergency with a friend I didn't know about? But deep down, I knew. I called the Bellagio, heart pounding in my chest. The cheerful receptionist answered, and I forced my voice to remain steady. "Hi, I'm trying to reach my husband, Corey Watson. I believe he checked in yesterday." A few keyboard clicks later, she confirmed, "Yes, Mr. Watson checked in yesterday afternoon. Would you like me to connect you to his room?" "Actually," I said, an idea forming, "can you just confirm our reservation details? I want to make sure we got the package I requested." "Of course, Mrs. Watson. Let's see, you have a deluxe fountain view room for 2 nights. Checkout is Sunday. And it looks like there are 2 guests registered, Mr. Watson and a Ms. Jessica Martinez." My vision blurred at the edges. Jessica. He'd mentioned her name once or twice, a new client relationship manager at his company. "Just a colleague," he'd said. "Is there anything else I can help you with, Mrs. Watson?" "No," I whispered. That's all I needed to know. After hanging up, I sat in numbing silence, the pieces clicking into place. The late-night texts. The work emergencies. The weekends when he'd be catching up on projects. How long had this been going on? Weeks? Months? Our entire relationship? I moved like a woman possessed, opening Instagram on my phone. I didn't know Jessica's account, but it didn't take long to find her. Corey was tagged in her most recent post from just 3 hours ago, a boomerang of champagne glasses clinking by the Bellagio fountains. "Weekend getaway with my love, Vegas, living our best life," read the caption. In the background, barely visible but unmistakable to me, was the corner of my Subaru in the hotel's valet parking area. My love. The words burned into my brain. I waited for the tears, for the screaming rage that should come with such a betrayal. Instead, an eerie calm washed over me. The kind of calm that comes when every illusion you've held suddenly falls away, leaving only crystal clarity in its place. I opened my laptop and booked a seat on the next bus to Las Vegas. The 6-hour ride gave me plenty of time to think. With each mile that passed, my shock hardened into resolve. Corey had lied to me, used me, taken advantage of my trust and generosity. He was probably laughing about it with Jessica right now, the two of them enjoying a romantic weekend in one of the most expensive hotels on the Strip, while I'd been worried sick, imagining him hurt or worse. I arrived in Vegas as evening was falling, the Strip coming alive with neon and promise. I took a taxi directly to the Bellagio and checked in, requesting a room on a different floor than Corey's. The concierge didn't bat an eye at my lack of luggage. This was Vegas, after all, where people arrived with nothing and sometimes left with even less. From my room, I called the front desk and asked about valet parking policies. Then I called the local towing company listed on the hotel's information packet. I explained my situation. My car had been taken without authorization and was currently in the hotel's parking area. I had the registration and could prove ownership. How quickly could they remove it? Give us the make, model, and license plate, ma'am. We'll have a truck there within the hour. Next, I used the hotel app to look up the pool schedule. Open until 10 p.m. It was just past 8. I took the elevator down to the main floor and positioned myself in the lobby lounge, with a clear view of both the elevator bank and the pathway to the pool. I ordered a martini I had no intention of drinking and waited. At 8:43 p.m., I saw them. Corey, tanned and relaxed in board shorts and a resort t-shirt I'd never seen before. Beside him, Jessica, tall, stunning, in a flowing cover-up over what was presumably a swimsuit. They were laughing, his arm around her waist, looking every bit the perfect couple enjoying a perfect weekend. My stomach clenched, but I remained hidden behind a large potted palm, watching as they headed toward the pool area. Once they were safely out of sight, I made my move. I went to the valet stand, explained that I needed something from my car but didn't want it brought around just yet. The young attendant was hesitant until I showed him my ID and the car registration I'd brought with me, both bearing the same name. He led me to where the Subaru was parked. I unlocked it and briefly sat in the driver's seat, my seat, now adjusted to Corey's longer legs. The car smelled of unfamiliar perfume and fast food. In the cup holder was a receipt from a gas station in Barstow, California. They'd taken the scenic route, apparently. I removed my house key from his keyring, leaving only the car key. Then I texted the towing company to let them know exactly where to find the vehicle. Back in the lobby, I wrote a note on hotel stationery, hope she's worth the Uber back. Don't bother coming home. M. I sealed it in an envelope with Corey's name and gave it to the front desk clerk. Could you please make sure Mr. Watson in room 1423 receives this when he returns from the pool? Of course, ma'am. I went back to my room, packed my few belongings, and checked out, but not before confirming with the front desk that the note would be delivered. Then I found a quiet spot across the street with a view of the Bellagio's entrance and settled in to wait. An hour later, I watched as a tow truck pulled away with my Subaru secured on its bed. I imagined Corey and Jessica, blissfully unaware by the pool, perhaps planning dinner or a show afterward. I didn't need to stick around for the aftermath. I'd seen enough. I took a taxi to the towing company's lot on the outskirts of town, presented my ID and registration, and paid the fee to release my own car. The clerk mentioned something about angry voicemails already left by a man claiming the car was borrowed, not stolen. Sounds like a domestic situation, he said, handing me the keys. Not anymore, I replied. I drove to a nearby motel and crashed for the night, exhausted but somehow lighter than I'd felt in months. In the morning, I'd begin the long drive back to Reno. As the desert sun rose, painting the landscape in shades of amber and gold, I pulled onto the highway. No need to check if Corey had called or texted, I'd blocked his number before falling asleep last night. I rolled down the windows, letting the rush of air drown out any lingering doubts or regrets. I thought about our apartment, about the life we'd built together over the past year. It wasn't much, mostly my furniture, my dishes, my effort, but I'd thought it was ours. I'd call my friend Lisa when I got back, ask if I could crash with her while I figured out what to do about the lease that still had both our names on it. But those were problems for tomorrow. Today, I had the open road, a full tank of gas, and a freedom I hadn't realized I was missing until now. I turned up the radio as No Scrubs by TLC came on, a fitting anthem for the moment. The speedometer climbed as Vegas shrank in my rearview mirror. Some people might say I overreacted. That I should have confronted him, heard his side of the story, given him a chance to explain. Maybe in another life, I would have. But in this one, I'd spent too long making excuses for someone who clearly didn't value me enough to be honest. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is walk away. Or in my case, drive away, in the car that was always mine to begin with. 2 weeks later, a package arrived at my new apartment. Inside was a set of keys and a short note from Corey, "I'm sorry. I moved out. The place is yours if you want it." No explanations, no excuses. Perhaps he knew there was nothing he could say to fix what he'd broken. I never responded. Never asked what happened after he found the car missing. Never wondered how much that Uber back to Reno must have cost. Never cared to know if he and Jessica were still together. Some stories don't need an ending tied up with a neat bow. Some betrayals don't deserve the closure of confrontation. Sometimes, the most satisfying revenge is simply reclaiming what was yours all along, your dignity, your self-respect, and yes, your car. And that Subaru. I had it detailed the day after I got back, erasing every trace of Corey and his weekend fling. Now it sits in my new assigned parking spot, gleaming in the Nevada sun. Every time I drive it, I'm reminded not of betrayal, but of the moment I chose myself. That's the thing about trust, once it's broken, no amount of apologies can put it back together exactly as it was. But that doesn't mean you're broken too. Just changed. Stronger at the fault lines. More aware of your worth. I still drive with the windows down when the weather permits, music loud enough to feel it in my chest. Free in a way I never was when Corey was around, borrowing my car and making promises he never intended to keep. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting away. And taking your car with you.